Hi guys, I'm back. This is Emily Roberson. I'm a novelist and I'm doing the next video in my series of the creative questions that I have asked myself. I'm hoping that my creative questions might help you guys as you look forward into living a creative life, which is my goal for everyone really. So one of the questions I'm going to talk about, this one's specific to making art, and the question is, who are you making it for? And I'm going to talk a little bit about creativity and a little bit about marketing. One of the questions that people will ask you when you show them your work is something like, what is your target market? And I could never make sense of what that means. What is a target market? What does that mean? Can't my book be for everyone? Why do I have to explain what it is? And so this question really bothered me for a long time. So I'm going to talk to you guys about my understanding of it. But first I'm going to tell a story because of course that's what I do. One time, a long time ago, I was watching Saturday Night Live with friends of our family, and Tracy Chapman came on and she sang her song Fast Car. And I'll put a little bit of it in for you guys because it's that great.
You got a fast car, and I want to get to anywhere. Maybe we make a deal. Maybe together we can get somewhere. Any place is better. Starting from zero, got nothing to lose. Maybe we'll make something. But me, myself, I got nothing to prove.
So Tracy Chapman sang Fast Car, and we were with friends of the family, and the wife of the friend of the family, mother of some kids that I knew, kept going on and on because Tracy Chapman was not dressed up to appear on Saturday Night Live. She was wearing a t-shirt. She was, dressed in a very casual way. And this friend of our family, who had always dreamed of making music, was so upset that Tracy Chapman hadn't dressed up and that she hadn't sort of made the most of her opportunity, was kind of what that friend of the family was saying. But meanwhile, I, very much in her target market, totally loved it. I loved Tracy Chapman. I loved everything about her. Had Tracy Chapman been dressed in a ball gown with makeup on or anything like that, that clearly wasn't what she was hoping to do as an artist, I think it would have made me feel, as a person who loved her work, that people were pushing her in a direction that she didn't want to go. And so the truth of that is that I was the target market and my friend's mom wasn't. I mean, that's just one way to look at this. Another way is when you walk in the bookstore, what section of the bookstore you go to, or which section would you want your book to be in. That's your target market. It's not the same, hard sci-fi and young adult aren't the same. The same way when you listen to the radio. If you listen to the radio, those stations are target markets. Now, you or I may listen to all different channels on the radio, but when a song is written, planning to play on country radio, it's got things that are different than a song that is planned for a pop station. But here's another part of this that's really important. When you start showing people your work, you're going to be tempted to show it to the people you're closest to. But before you do that, I have to just beg you to look at what do they like. Because if you show them your romance novel and they only like to read hard sci-fi, they're not going to like your book, but it doesn't have anything to do with your book. It's because they don't read romance. And so you'll have your feelings hurt because they either don't respond at all or respond badly, or it feels like they're lying to you. All three of those things are really terrible things to feel. And so, and I'm warning you this from my own experience, which is early on, I had no idea how to get people to read your work. I didn't know how to find critique groups and stuff. So I just kept sending my work to family members, and then they would be so hard on it. And later on I realized it's because they don't read what I write. They read totally different things. And so when you start sharing your work, there's really a temptation to have the people who love you the most love it. And maybe they won't. Like, they could still love you, but it may be that they don't love your work. For Lifestyles of Gods and Monsters, my book that's right here, I mean, my dad, he doesn't love it. It's not his thing. It's not what he reads. Of course, he doesn't read YA. But the first time he said, you know, he didn't love it, it really hurt my feelings. But then I had to really focus on, like, I didn't write it for my dad. I wrote it for teenage me, or I wrote it for you, or I wrote it for people who love YA. I wrote it for people who love mythology. None of those things are true for him, so it's okay that he doesn't like it. But then I think the next part of this for you is to look at who you do want to read it. Who's your ideal reader or ideal listener or ideal viewer? Because that makes a big difference about what you do. So who is your ideal reader, ideal listener? You know, your ideal audience, the audience. Who is your ideal audience? Who are you wanting to enjoy what you're making the most? For many of us, that is a younger version of ourselves. And I really think that that is such a great reason to tell the story. Doing something or making something or singing something because it's what you always wished you had is just this beautiful thing. And I feel like it's like total circle of life, like, you know, sharing something that you wish you had with the younger versions of yourself. I think that's one of my favorite things about art. Also, it could be like extending something you loved before. You know, you want to put your flag in the ground on this whole genre that you grew up loving, but just felt like this one thing could be better, or this one thing could be different. And so that, I think, is also a really great way to think about your target audience. So then when you're looking for people to critique your work or to share it with early on, look for the people who love the same stuff you love. But as I say in all the videos, be careful with your heart, and don't, if you start sharing your work with someone and it feels like the way they're interacting with you about it is yucky, like, you don't have to interact with them anymore. That's like the biggest lesson I want everybody to take away from these videos. Critique is hard. It feels hard to be critiqued, but it isn't mean. And when it starts to feel mean, you do better to extricate yourself from the situation rather than sitting there and taking it. It shouldn't be a beating. Okay, so now last, I'm going to talk about the hardest thing, which is the marketing part. What if you are where I was a few years ago and you just know you'd like to be a published author, or you'd like to have your song played on the radio, or you'd like to have your art shown in galleries? Well, that means you really do have to care about what the market says as a whole. You have to pay attention to that. But you can't do it in a way that makes you lose what you love about your work. It's the weirdest thing about art, that we can't make it if we crush our souls. But if you're gonna try to market it, you have to think about how it would fit in a market. So the two things are in a balancing act. So for me, I guess one of the ways I think about it is, if I have 10 ideas, can I identify that one of them has an existing target market that's true, you know, today? Because one of the things that happened, for example, in books is, you know, there was a period for a while where you couldn't sell a vampire book. You know, nobody wanted a vampire book. Well, they're back, because eventually everything comes back. But so maybe if you are just writing for yourself, write whatever you like. But if you're writing hoping to sell something to a publisher, you know, you do have to pay a little bit of attention to the market as a whole. But I think there's so much heart in this. So if you're writing something because you've heard that, you know, it's going to be the next big thing, that's not a reason to do it. So I just think finding your balance between like what might sell and what you love. And if you imagine a Venn diagram of those two things, in the middle of that is where you want to be. So anyway, so that's this video about finding your target market, and I'm hoping to be making videos every week. So if you would like to ask me any questions about their creative life, ask them in the comments down below, and subscribe if you'd like to see more of these the next time I post them. And hoping everybody has a great day.